If I'm here and I have to cover this distance, right? I can throw my kick, I can throw my punch. From this punch, I'm actually already winding up for this shot, whether it's going to the arm because she has a really good guard because she knows what she's doing, or it could go to the face if I have that hold to be able to travel that punch in. But from here, as I'm going in, I'm using this to wind up my body, and from here, I'm going to cover that gap in. So the premise of this particular session that we're going to focus on is a few different ways on how to effectively use the Pensador or the Shape 1, if you're going by Defense Lab standards, in an altercation. So starting off, we're going to talk about the most obvious thing when it comes to the Pensador or the Shape 1 shielding type motion. And that's going to be in a purely defensive type manner. We're not going to talk about this a whole lot because it's been addressed in other videos. But when I'm here and I'm caught off guard, I'm caught surprised, and maybe she throws a punch at me or whatever, and I bring my hands up just to block my head. Obviously, this is the use that you probably see the most of because it's the most basic. I want to protect my head, so when this punch comes in, I'm just trying to get my hands up, right? Now, it may not be absolutely perfect as far as like, oh, everything's in the right place. Right now, I'm just trying to cover my head, and that is one way to use the Pensador. One way that you can also use this Pensador or Shape 1 is a way to kind of close the distance, but to do so protected. So when I'm here and there's a little bit of distance and I need to close in and I need to get within touching distance of my opponent, I don't necessarily want to go in with my hands down, looking up, and I get shot in the face. If they know what they're doing, even if I got a decent guard, they're going to be firing shots, most likely. So that means that as I'm going in, it's going to be hard to get exactly where I want to get without getting hit in the face. Using the Pensador, using the Shape 1, as I'm coming in, I can close in and kind of crash into my opponent in a way that allows me to keep the head protected. Now I know that when my hands are up and maybe the lower part of the body is exposed, obviously you take these things into account. So if I'm back here in kicking distance, right, I'm not gonna have my hands all the way up, right? If I'm out in this leg distance, I wanna do something that's gonna kind of take care of what's going on down here, right? And I use that to kind of close the gap a little bit. But if I'm already really in close to where maybe throwing that kick isn't going to be in their best interest, even if they have their guard up and they're really nice and tight and all this kind of stuff, I can't quite get in there, I can always crash in, and that allows me to close this distance and maybe kind of put them off guard just a little bit. One of the things to keep in mind when you are closing this distance is I don't want to do redundant type moves. If she has a guard up and it's a good solid guard and all this kind of stuff, I don't want to just kind of run in with my forearms, because from here I haven't really gained anything. I haven't hurt them. Maybe I knocked them off balance a little bit, maybe not. And I'm not really getting any bang for my buck. So what I want to make sure that I'm trying to do is if they have kind of a looser guard, I want to see if as I'm crashing in, that I can throw one of these elbows in. So when I'm here, I don't want to just make this connection and now I have to figure out how I'm going to go around these arms to get in and do what I want to do. I want to stay protected so I don't get knocked out. And as I'm rushing in, I'm going to try to fit one of these elbows in. Now, obviously, I'm not going to hit her in the face in the demonstration purposes. I know some of you guys would really love to see me get in a real fight right now. I'm not trying to do that. Again, this is a demonstration. This is for training. But the intent is, anytime that I go in and make some sort of connection, whether it's to the arms or even if the arms are down and it's to the body, I want to cause some kind of damage. Another use of the Shape 1 of the Pensador, once you start beginning to make your entries, is learning how to manipulate different parts of the body. If she has a guard up and she has a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of experience, I'm not just going to be able to move these arms at my own free will. She's not going to let me. Chances are, if I go to try to move this, she's going to hit me, right? Or if I try to manipulate her body in any sort of way, she's gonna do something to keep me from doing that. So if I wanna get in and I wanna reach my target, say it's the head, could be the throat, could be anywhere. But if I wanna be able to reach a certain target, I have to have the ability to make certain types of manipulations to be able to get around a guard, especially if somebody knows what they're doing. So using the shape 1, as I make this crash, as I start coming in for this entry, I can use these elbows as a way to manipulate around. I'm gonna crash and enter with the shape 1. From here, I'm gonna use the elbows and use my body mechanics to manipulate that arm. Now, this isn't a really soft style give and take type technique. So when I'm here, it's not like, all right, let me move your arm down. Oh, thank you, right? Everything that I'm trying to do here is very explosive. It's very ballistic. I am literally crashing in. So I'm crashing all the way in, trying to tag her with that elbow. If it happens, that's awesome, because really that's the end goal. If it doesn't happen, I'm still wanting to go in with a heightened amount of force. So as I come in, if I don't get her with that elbow, and I'm at a kind of a stopping point here, I'm gonna use this elbow and I'm gonna drag down very forcefully. Now, if her head happens to run into my head, that's great for me. So when I come in and I drag this down, if she ends up taking the shot, that's great. If not, I already have this opening here to where I can start attacking and working my way to end the fight. So that was one example. And the example that we went through was through this hole right here. I crashed in, and I'm gonna leave this kind of loose for demonstration purposes. That way we go ahead and alleviate those comments of, oh, that's not how you do it. When I crash in, I drag down this arm here, right? There's other routes that I can go. I can actually crash into the middle, and I can open up this way, or I can open up this way. I can also crash into the middle and open up through the other side. No matter where their arms are or how they're standing in this fight, right? If I make this connection, I have options. Well, what happens, right? If I go to make this connection, maybe they're a lot taller than I am, or maybe I shot a little bit too low and I'm actually on the outside of this arm. That's perfectly fine, because from here, I can actually pop that up and then continue my route inside. So now I want to go over my favorite application of the shape, my favorite application of the Pensador, and that is using it as an attack all on its own. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to bring in the kick shield. That way I can kind of demonstrate the technique. However, especially the keyboard warriors out there, keep in mind, this is a demonstration. This is not an actual fight. So I'm going to show the technique, but I'm not trying to hit her as hard as I can. So when I'm here, I'm gonna get my shape 1 kind of cocked and ready to go. And from here, I'm gonna roll my body, fully utilizing the momentum and every aspect of my body mechanic. And as I go in, I bring the shape over and I attack with my elbows. And when I come in, I cover a little bit of this distance. All the power comes from every part of your body. And I'm rolling my body to get this mechanic, this momentum going in, and I wind up and I cover this distance as well. A lot of times when I'm using this technique, I may not be as close in as I need to be to fully utilize it. So when I do this, I have to do almost like a drag step. So when I do this rolling mechanic, I have to make sure that I cover this ground. It's very important that you use the elbows. You can use it as a standalone if you have the chance. Obviously, I can't tell you exactly how that fight's gonna go. You can use it as a form of combination. If I'm here and I have to cover this distance, right? I can throw my kick, I can throw my punch. From this punch, I'm actually already winding up for this shot, whether it's going to the arm because she has a really good guard because she knows what she's doing, or it could go to the face if I have that hold to be able to travel that punch in. But from here, as I'm going in, I'm using this to wind up my body, and from here, I'm gonna cover that gap in. Now, what you'll see a lot, if you've seen this type of attack before, you'll see it kind of go forearm to forearm. If I'm here and I go to do this attack, you'll see a lot of the forearms go in. And of course, you're like, well, how does that work, right? And obviously when you're training, well, if you're educated, if you're smart and you're training with somebody else, partner preservation should be one of those things that's a kind of higher up on your priority list. If it's not, you're probably an asshole, and I wouldn't blame your partners for not wanting to train with you anyway. But when I'm here and I'm drilling this on my partner, I'm not trying to hit them as hard as I can, and I am going with my forearms just so I can make this contact multiple times, and then they come back and train with me later. However, when it comes to actual application and I go to throw this attack, I'm leading straight in with those elbows. The last point that I want to make on this particular attack, and again, keep in mind, this is your 101. This is your very basic. There's a lot in here for you to be able to train and extract and be able to make work for you. But when I'm in here, I want to keep in mind that it's not just this attack that I'm going for. This is the main one, yes. But again, I'm not trying to operate with any wasted movement. So as I'm coming in and I'm making this attack, I'm stomping that foot down. You'll see that a lot in demonstrations. And what that is if there's a foot or if there's anything here that I can actually get with that foot stomp, I'm gonna get that. If for some reason there's not, I'm still trying to close that distance and still use my legs, because if for some reason I don't knock them back, right? I have this knee-to-knee connection, and I can use that manipulation to kind of help throw them off balance. You see this in a lot of different systems. JKD is one of them. When I go in and I make that trap and I'm going for my Pak Sao and my Lop Sao, I'm going in and I'm making this knee-to-knee connection or this knee-to-knee connection. That way I can keep that leg checked so I know where it's at all times. Or if I need to, I can use that as a manipulation again to kind of throw them off their base. When it comes to the Shape 1 and when it comes to the Pensador, there are so many different applications out there. I love boxing. I love kickboxing. I love martial arts just in general, right? I don't necessarily love getting hit in the face. I even love it when you come in and you do that shape and I have that connection, and maybe you start going back a little bit, and so I catch that leg, and then I drive down. I love that kind of stuff. I mean, you might be able to pull it off. You might not be able to pull it off, but it's kind of fun to play with either way. Yeah. Kick him in the nuts. No groin, no cry. Now, let me give you a little context here. I've been teaching these things for quite a while, and a few years back I had a gym in Oklahoma, and one of our first students in this gym, his name was Steve, one of the best types of people that you could ever meet in your life. And even as a student, right, he was very enthusiastic. He was a complete and total joy to have in my classes. And Steve probably outweighed me by a good 250 pounds. The guy was a brick wall, very strong, very solid. When he hit you, even though he wasn't trying, you felt it. I remember one time we were doing this drill, and it was a predator drill. So he was in the middle, and everybody was hitting him with focus mitts and stuff like that. And around this time, I weighed 210, 215, and I was pretty decently solid myself. And old Steve, what he did is he picked me up with one arm and looked at me as he set me off to the side. This is not one of those over exaggerations. He picked me up with one hand, looked at me. But anyway, I told you that to tell you this. We were working on the Shape 1 and attack one night, and I was teaching him the mechanics, and I had him stand here, and he was holding a kick shield for me. And I said, you want to make sure that you get your entire body mechanic into this. And then I shaped as hard as I could, and I knocked him back.
Mine's like, go ahead and put the shield down.
That reaction is probably going to be really good for the video, though.
I was like, is he gonna? He's not gonna. He's not. He is.
Oh shit!